Dan, welcome to the Personal Best podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So nice to have you here in the studio. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of your stuff on social media recently, and it's nice to just be able to sit down face to face, have a conversation. But for people that don't know you or don't follow you, you created this beautiful social media page where you share a lot of personal things about your life, but also some really helpful messages around mental health and self care and kind of navigating being a man in
Yeah.
2025, which is harder than people might think. But I know in your Instagram bio it says currently getting my spark back. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's been a journey, but for me it's like when I look back on myself at uni, I was quite a confident guy. I was quite energetic. I felt like the center of the party at times, which I loved.
Mm.
And then recently I was kind of reflecting and I was like, I've lost that.
Yeah.
And it like really hit home, bless them. Like my parents were like, we've lost you a little bit. Like where's Dan gone? And I was like, yeah, that's kind of like how I feel. So I'm now on this mission to try and get my spark, like literally spark, like energy, confidence, doubting myself less, and just being Dan.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, like hearing you explain that, because a lot of people will go on a similar journey at some point in their life. And we often end up comparing ourselves to others, and that can be quite a negative thing. But sometimes we are also comparing ourselves to past versions
Yeah,
of us. And I can relate to that so much. You know, I look back on like my gap years or just periods of my life where I felt really content and really fulfilled. And sometimes actually you get so far away from that without even realizing.
yeah,
And it's like, actually, how can I get back to that version of me, like the happiest and like most authentic version of myself? If you had to kind of look at those few years past uni, can you pinpoint things that maybe have like dimmed your spark a little bit?
yeah. I was did exactly the same exercise because I was trying to work out like where did it go
Yeah.
wrong. And I think what was interesting is that I think it's going to be for the best, but I recently got made redundant. And when that
Mm.
job was lifted, it was like, whoa, hang on a second. It was like I'd escaped the matrix, like kind of like the blindfold had been lifted. So I think definitely throughout your 20s, trying to work out what you like doing, what you don't like doing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that spark was potentially sucked by the work I was doing. Like it wasn't bad. It was good and it taught me a lot.
Hmm.
I was in like consulting, but I think that's one of the things that maybe because I wasn't doing something that I was passionate about, and I feel like I need to do something that I'm passionate about, it kind of sucked a bit of
Yeah.
life out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also at uni as well, obviously you are in the education system still, but you have so much freedom outside of that to be yourself and do things that you enjoy. And then suddenly, as an adult, you enter the world of work, and it's like your life kind of feels like it's just between 9 to 5.
yeah,
And it's really hard to then, I don't know, build a life around that, that I guess is fulfilling you, maybe if the job isn't. But I know you've been very open and honest about recently being made redundant. And unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to that experience. And I think what's difficult about that is it really shifts your sense of purpose. Like, I think we tie a lot of our self identity and our self worth to the jobs that we do. And so when that kind of the rug gets pulled from underneath your feet, that's going to be quite difficult. How have you kind of navigated that period since losing the job?
yeah. I've tried to. So this is actually the second time I've been made redundant. So
Really?
yeah, second time in my 20s. Maybe I'm just like a bad luck. I don't know. But the first time, and it's hard because obviously especially in your 20s you haven't saved loads of money, like it's
Yeah.
financially stressful. So the first time I just went into panic mode. I think the same day I was like on LinkedIn, like spamming people that I
Yeah.
knew, trying to get the right energy out there to find something different. This time I was like, okay, last time I kind of rushed, so I was like, I'm just going to sit with it for like a week and
Mm.
just decide what I want to do next without
Mm.
rushing into it. And then ever since, it's kind of just tried to have a really positive mindset, as in this thing's happened that was completely outside of my control. I couldn't control that, but I can control how I respond to it. So what I've been trying to do is use this time, whilst not stressing too much about money, which obviously is a stress, but use this time to refine my spark again because I've got way more time. find purpose from other things, and just put all my energy into like my content and my speaking and my community, because that is what gets me up in the morning and it is what drives me. And without the redundancy, I wouldn't have the time to do that. So trying to view it as, yes, short-term pain, but this has happened for a reason, and I've just got to channel that and just keep going.
Yeah. Do you think everything happens for a reason?
I think I do, yeah.
Mm.
Because when I look back in my 20s, in the moment it's really rough, but normally 3 to 6 months later, I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad that happened.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's like someone says it to you, you'll be like, they say like, oh, you'll be so glad this happened in 3 to 6 months. You're like, oh, like stop it, like it
Mhm.
hurts right now,
Mhm.
and you don't really believe them, but they're always right.
Yeah, but I think that's a really powerful mindset shift, that you can try and see some of the positives. And I imagine it's not always easy, especially when these things, come as a massive shock to you. But what's great is that you are also working on your own stuff outside of the job. And if it allows you that time to kind of, or it gives you more time to put into that, I think that is really important. And I think in terms of like getting your spark back as well, it's figuring out what are the other things outside the job that fulfill you, as we mentioned. And I'm reading this book at the minute called A Little Life, which I know is quite a well-known novel for being really, really sad. But there was one notable like passage in the book where this guy is uh, physically and emotionally quite unwell, and he keeps waking up from these like fever dreams, almost like not knowing who he is or where he is. And his partner describes him to him and is like, your name is Jude, you do this. And the thing that I really noticed is he listed so much stuff of like, this is what you love doing, and these are your friends, and you're kind and you're caring, before he lists the job. Do you know
Mm,
what I mean? But when we go to introduce ourselves, so often it's like, hi, I'm Ruby and I am a podcaster, or I work in sales. And actually, we're so much more than just a job title.
yeah, I couldn't agree more, because in the community that I run, it's so interesting, and I do the same. So you meet someone new, and one of the first questions is, "What do you do?" Or
Yeah.
"Oh, hi, I'm Dan, and I'm X, Y, Z." Rather than listing off. Why not list off all your characteristics or your traits, or what you enjoy?
Yeah.
Because that's what the job makes up, is our kind of slice of our cake of what makes us up. But there's
Mm.
so many other slices in there that
Yeah.
we just forget about so easily, or we
Yes.
don't talk about.
And I guess with like the whole redundancy thing as well, it makes you analyze that a little bit more and kind of look internally and figure out kind of who you are away from that, which I think is an important shift as well. I want to dive into mental health, which is a huge subject, but I know that you've spoken quite openly about it on
Yeah.
social media. And one of the things that you've shared is your dad's experience with depression and his own mental health. How has that shaped your understanding of mental health, I suppose?
Yeah, I think before Dad became unwell, it wasn't a term that I said or was massively aware of. I wasn't aware of what it meant physically, like how did it feel, the terms depression or
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, or the kind of common, um, you know, symptoms that we associate with mental health. It didn't really cross my mind. And then all of a sudden, my dad became severely depressed, and I didn't really understand what was going on. And I thought it was just something that, oh, I'll just get better, or like, well, dad's invincible, like he'll be fine. And ever since that's happened, it's completely changed my view and my world around mental health,
Yeah.
because someone who I viewed as invincible was no longer invincible and nearly wasn't with us. So ever since then, it kind of evoked a fear inside me, as well as, well, the same thing happened to me. So I'm way more aware of it, way more aware of how I'm feeling, the day-to-day things that I do, to try and prevent the same thing happen to me,
Yeah.
but also prevent the same thing from happening to others, which is my big mission right now. So it's completely changed my view on it.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think we aren't given the education about mental health until something like that happens, right? And it maybe shifts your way of thinking or your understanding of your own mental health, especially if it's not something that you've personally dealt with. And I imagine your dad is, you know, in his 50s. Mm.
Yeah, he's going to turn 60 in November.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you've almost lived 50 years of your life, and then something like this can happen. And I think it's important that we realize it can happen to you at any point and at different stages of your life. And I guess it's funny as well when you look at your parents, because they are, this strong, stable, um, reliable figure in your life. And for them to go through something like that, I imagine it is really difficult. And I appreciate you kind of sharing that so openly as well. But I think the topic of men's mental health is kind of sad when you look at the
Mm.
statistics, but I think it's also really important that we talk about it. And I read that 1 in 8 men in England will experience mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Suicide is unfortunately the most common cause of death for men under 50, but also 40% of men never speak to anyone else about their mental health. And it's like those statistics just don't seem to marry up. What have you learned from your dad sharing his experience, and why do you think maybe men don't talk about it as openly as they could?
Yeah, I think first part of that is what have I learned from Dad's experience. I think I've learned so much about what caused him to get to that point.
Yeah.
So many factors, which is what I talk about on my content or on stage, things that you wouldn't think about. So your common things like lack of exercise or stress or what you're eating, all these kind of things. But other things that never really crossed my mind, like purpose, which is what we've been talking about. So a lack of purpose was a big thing for Dad,
Mm.
and a lack of connection. And so that connection point is really important and relevant to the second part of that of your question. Men have typically struggled to open up about how they're feeling. They feel, or I think I felt at times, constrained by what masculinity means. I need to be strong, I need to be a
Mm.
provider. I think in Dad's case, he has obviously my mum and my sister and I. He was the main earner. He had the mortgage, all of those kind of things. So he just needs to go to work and earn the money to provide, and that was his role. So talking about how he was feeling or opening up to others was not really on the table. I
Yeah.
think my dad's more open than most, and now he's like really great at it and is encouraging lots of his friends to open up as well. And they've been doing that, which is brilliant. But I think that was, it's 5 years ago now. So the conversation around men's mental health was happening, but it was still in its earliest stages, where it's a lot more kind of front and center.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear, because I'm so aware that, men struggle to open up and talk about their mental health. But I also can't relate in a way. I feel like I'm very, very open with my female friends and with people in my life. And I feel like talking about my emotions and feelings comes so easily to me in a way. Like, I felt really down and upset about something the other night, and I just called my friend and, like, started off in tears down the phone. By the end of the conversation, we were laughing, and she gave me her advice, and we just talked. And I think that is so important. And it really, I don't know, it upsets me that men sometimes don't feel like they can do that, because maybe it is a sign of weakness, or they perceive it to be a sign of weakness. Or, like you said, if you are in that provider role, it's almost you don't have the time, or you feel like you don't have the space to kind of share openly how you might be struggling.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that for a long time there's been lots, which is a great movement around men need to talk more, men need to talk more, men need to talk more, which is great. I think there's two sides to that, because yes, men need to talk more, but they need someone to listen,
Yeah.
and they need a space to do it in that's comfortable for them, which might be different from man to man, but we need to provide more spaces like that. And the more you tell someone to do something, the less they're likely to do it. It's like when you're a kid and your mum's like, tidy your room, tidy your room, tidy your room. You're like, no, I don't want to tidy my room. So I think for me as a guy, when I always hear, you need to talk more, you need to talk more, you need to talk more, it's like it blames like the individual guy. Oh, you're not talking enough.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not your fault that you're not talking enough. It's, do you have a space to do it in? And are you being asked the right questions from your mates or from whoever it might be? Because for lots of guys, we've never really been trained in it. I don't know, it sounds weird, but
Yeah.
we weren't brought up to share emotions or be emotionally intelligent. So it's a new skill that we're trying to add to this repertoire of what it means to be a man, which
Hmm.
is really exciting and really cool. It has a bad view, and obviously for a reason, but I think it's actually a really exciting time to be a man because we can keep all this really great traditional stuff, which I don't think we should lose. We can tweak it, but there's lots of great good stuff in there,
Yeah.
and add on these new layers. It's exciting.
I love that. And I did actually want to ask you whether or not your ideas about what it means to be a man have changed. Maybe from that transition from uni to adult life, but also through watching your dad struggle with his mental health. And yeah, has your idea shifted?
I think before dad, didn't really think about it. In the last few years, I thought about it a lot more. What does it
Yeah.
mean to be a man? It's been more kind of trending in online and in conversations. And I think, yeah, a year ago for me, it was like, right, I need to ditch all these masculine things. I need to become more feminine. There are some brilliant feminine qualities which I do try and bring into my life. I've got some amazing women in my life, and I've learned a lot from them. But I think I kind of went so far the other way and kind of just almost like denounced my masculinity. Like, oh no, it's bad to be masculine. It's not good to be masculine. You need to be way more feminine. And I think it was about 6 months ago. I was like, hang on a second. There's so many good things there. Like, why am I running away from them? Like being a provider to an extent, or being
Mm.
that rock for someone. Like that's such a powerful thing to be that rock for someone, like your partner or your sister or whoever it might be, your mates. Like that is, and sometimes you might not share how you're feeling to look after them. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's coupling that with, well, when you are really struggling, you need to share how you're feeling. Doesn't have to
Mm.
be every week, doesn't have to be every day. I think that's an unrealistic expectation on a man because we're wired in that way, and that's not going to change. But okay, every few months you're really struggling with something, yeah, share it.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose your role of being a provider. You're going to add to it.
I think it's getting the balance. And I really like the way you've described that because people are going to be bored of me explaining this, but I'm very aware that in the self development space, the language for men and women is quite different. And for men, it's all about doing hard things and being disciplined. And, you know, you hear David Goggins saying, who's going to carry the boats and all of that stuff. And then for women, we have a much softer approach. And it's kind of, you're okay the way you are. You don't need to change anything. Lean into that feminine energy, however you want to describe it. And I think there is this like happy medium where you can have a bit of both.
Yeah,
And I wonder if, because in recent years we've heard things like toxic masculinity and we've seen the rise of like Andrew Tate and kind of unhealthy role models, I suppose, that it has made some men question their masculinity and sort of denounce traits that aren't necessarily negative, but they've perceived it in that way.
yeah, yeah. I fell into exactly that bucket of
Yeah,
seeing these traits and be like, oh, that's negative. I mustn't show that trait. But so if channeled in the right way, it's a really positive trait.
yeah,
You know,
definitely. And I've heard Chris Bumstead talk about this of all people, like Mr. Olympia. I don't know how many times he's won, like 6 times. People might look at him and see him as like the peak of kind of masculinity, but actually he's shared on podcasts and things about how important it is to show emotions and be able to kind of cry to your wife or your girlfriend and show that side of you as well. I think
yeah,
you can do both. And especially when you're kind of navigating relationships, if you are with a woman, I think you kind of see that side a bit more. And I spoke with David McIntosh on his podcast recently, and we were saying how often when guys are, in a relationship with the right person, they show that more like silly feminine side because they don't feel like they have to be this like macho man. But also if they want to step up and have that more provider role, then that's okay as well.
yeah. Exactly. It's having both.
Yeah.
It's having both. Like my previous girlfriend, bless her, like I learned a lot from her in terms of sharing things, and I was comfortable to share things with her. And it was really
Mm.
special because it connects you. And yeah, it's not might not be every day, but it's like when it needs to happen, it can happen. And that's really special.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I think is interesting, because I know you've spoke a lot about um, kind of self care, and I'm sure like navigating a breakup makes you focus on that a little
Yeah.
bit more. How do you balance kind of being emotionally available with your own well being? I feel like sometimes it feels like self care is something we have to do by ourselves, and that I've definitely fallen into the trap of that before, where if I'm in a relationship or I have other distractions in my life, then it feels like I'm kind of not prioritizing me. But actually, I think there is a balance somewhere to be found.
Yeah, it's a balance that's really important, and one that I've got wrong because in the past, because if you don't look after yourself, then how are you supposed to care for other people?
Yeah.
So sometimes it feels selfish to, I don't know, maybe have an afternoon to yourself and just sit in a park and read a book, or by yourself when you moisturize or something, because you know it's going to make you feel good and look after yourself. Because for me, I'm like, I think it is like a common trait of a man, is that selfless nature of like, you know, I need to provide, I want to put people before me, or something that I've experienced anyway. But actually, sometimes you need to think about yourself, because if you
Mm-hmm.
keep putting everyone else before you, when you go to help them or they need you, you're not going to be there to help them,
Yeah.
because you're going to, you know, yeah,
Yeah. It's that classic thing of like, um, you can't pour it from an empty cup.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you do have to fill up your own cup first before you can kind of support other people. And I think that's really important. But I really like that you talk about that, because again, it's not something that I think a lot of men do share in terms of what does self-care look like for a man. Like for women, we, might have a bubble bath or do a face mask or skincare, whatever it is. But what are some of the things that you do, I guess, to prioritize self-care? Like what does that look like day to day to kind of help you feel your best, I suppose?
Yeah, I think a classic one for me and lots of guys is getting a nice haircut. Like going to the barbers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Getting my, like, the lines on my beard nice, and then you come out and you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I feel so much better now than when I went in. But that's like, you know, every 3 or 4 weeks, going a nice haircut is a big one
Mm,
for me.
yeah.
I think, like, eating well.
Yeah.
It's easy, you know, especially when you're busy, and it happens, like we're all human, but this is my body and I want to look after it. So getting that the right fuel in,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what else I do. What else do I do?
Well, you mentioned about like just going and sitting in a park and like reading a book. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
such
no,
a simple thing that is great, you know?
yeah. Like this morning, I went to cycle to Brockwell Park. I made a bacon sarnie at home,
Nice.
made a cup of tea. Yeah, it was so nice. It was like the best. Sun was out, just sat in the park, ate my bacon sarnie. All these dogs were coming up trying to eat it because they could smell it from a mile off. Didn't think that through.
Yeah.
Cup of tea, took my book. I was there for like, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes, but it was so nice.
Yeah.
Just like time to myself, just outside, and it was so simple and so cost effective. Anyone could do it. It doesn't have to be some fancy class, or, you know, whatever it might be. It was just,
Mm.
it was free.
Yeah, like Pilates class and a matcha is going to set you back a fair bit
Yeah,
nowadays. And yet,
exactly.
that's what we've kind of like showcased as self care. But it can be so simple as making a cup of tea and sitting in a park. I love that. But if you're happy to talk about it,
Yeah.
how has kind of this recent breakup also made you prioritize that self care element? Because I think when you are with someone, they can become a bit of an emotional crutch. And then when you don't have that, it's difficult to navigate.
Yeah, I think when you're in a relationship, or at least when I'm in a relationship, that other person becomes a huge part of your life, and you think about them a lot, and you care for them, and you want them to be okay, and you want to fix all of their challenges that they might be facing. And so after navigating, or currently navigating, this breakup, that's immediately removed.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, well, I've now got all this time and space to focus on myself and think about myself. And I think I've seen so many videos recently of like breakup glow ups online of like, I mean, classic guys who are like overweight and then they get absolutely tanked. Um, but, and I do want to like get myself in good shape, but
Mm,
not to the extreme. But in a simple sense, it's and you when you're in a relationship, you have another person's life that you're thinking about, and that adds so much to your life as well.
yeah,
But when you're single, like I am now, that's removed. So I do have more time to focus on myself. But
yeah.
obviously, you lose what you get from a relationship as well. So it's swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, and I think it can be a bit of a time to be selfish, and that's not necessarily in a negative way, but it's often the advice I give to friends and I've had to kind of give to myself in the past is that when you do go through a breakup, all that time and energy that you were putting into somebody else and you were putting into the relationship, like you can put that back into yourself, and that can happen in lots of different ways. Maybe it is spending more time in the gym focusing on that, or I don't know, picking up a hobby that you haven't had time to do. Like there are positives that can come out of it, but I also understand that it's challenging. And I know for you and your ex-girlfriend, you also kind of shared your relationship online, so
Yeah,
that's also something that you are going to have to figure out, right?
yeah. It's a difficult one to navigate because we're only, I think, yeah, 2.5 weeks in
Mm,
now. So, and it's something we did talk about as well. How do we
yeah,
position this on online? Because we had people that followed both of us
yeah.
and they were like really sad when they heard about it, which is really sweet. And so we kind of agreed to just for now just not really kind of talk about it too much, because I
Yeah.
think it's easy for people to side with one person or be like, oh, they did this or they've made them feel like that. But I think for us it was as amicable as it could have been. There's still like a lot of love
Mm.
there. We're still
Mm.
like, I hope that we can be really good friends, which is obviously what everyone says, but
Yeah.
hopefully we can, and we'll be cheerleading each other on from the sidelines. But it just, for a few reasons, it just wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
um so I think we're conscious of trying to get that right online, which is easier said than done. Because I've had other friends who are content creators and they've had relationships break down, they've shared too much, and then it can cause a lot of people misconstrue things, or people take sides, and it's like we
Yeah.
don't want that.
I just watched I think his name Josh Peters. He made a documentary about the old like Brit crew, the YouTube like
Right.
generation of like Zoella and Marcus Butler and all of that, and it's kind of following their lives. And you know, they kind of reached peak fame probably like 10 years ago now. But they were talking about how difficult it is to kind of have this public persona where you also share your personal life and how invested people can
Yeah.
get into that. And it's like not only are you going through a breakup, then you're having to, deal with that with all these eyes on you. And I'm not saying it's like exactly the same extent, but I think it's something else that our generation are having to deal with, having our lives online as well
Hmm.
as dealing with them in real life as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's yeah.
But I think navigating relationships, whether romantic or platonic, can be difficult for a lot of men. I know. I think some guys, like my boyfriend has a really great group of mates and they check in with each other and they're really close.
So
And I think that's
nice.
so amazing. But a lot of people don't have that. I know you've built this amazing community for guys called Shoulder to Shoulder. What have you learned about building meaningful like relationships and
Hmm.
connections with other people from that?
I think the main takeaway is that whenever I come away from one of those walks, I feel so good afterwards, and
Yeah.
it's the power of, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but when conversations are very surface level, the connection is struggles to build. And of course, that part of those conversations are surface level, like what football team do you support, or what do you do for
Mm.
work, or whatever it might be. But there are those nuggets where people share something a bit deeper, or they're a little bit vulnerable. And in that moment, it's the connection that creates is so strong.
Yeah.
Like I'm literally going to these walks. I've never met these guys before, and I went to the last walk. This bless him, this guy was going through a tough time. I think that was the second time I met him, and he was sharing all the stuff, and I was like, wow, like I feel so much closer to you right now, and I messaged him a few days afterwards, just checking in, like, hey mate, how you doing? Immediately, that the speed and growth of that connection is so much faster than if it had been a very surface level conversation. So I think that's my main learning, is that when you do open up a little bit, it doesn't have to be loads, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be all the time, can be infrequent-ish. You might come to 4 or 5 of our walks, you might open up once about something small. That's so fine. But the connection that builds is so strong.
It's so true. There's so much connection in vulnerability, and maybe guys shy away from that a little bit more because, as you said, they are used to having these surface level conversations. And it's so funny. I've been around groups of guys, whether it's boyfriends, friends, or whatever at school, and I kind of analyze them like animals in a zoo.
Yeah,
And I just love
something like
seeing
that.
how they like interact with each other. Like this past weekend, went away with some mates and we did a outdoor water like obstacle course.
Nice.
And the guys were like absolutely loving it, just going wild, like trying to push each other off, like play fighting, whatever. And, I had a good time, but I much prefer kind of socializing where I'm sat around a table with like my closest group of
Mm.
friends and we can have those like deep, meaningful conversations. And there's absolutely a place for both. But I think, like you said, if people or men can, I don't know, feel comfortable to just open up a little bit and maybe share some of that deeper stuff, I think that is where like real connections are built, and hopefully like real friendships as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can literally have better friendships by doing that. I think lots of men are struggling to find mates, or have really good, solid friendships, and this is just one thing that you can do to make them better.
Mm,
Because I think, for again, it comes back to men need to talk more, men need to talk more. Have they ever been told why? And this is one of the key reasons why. And another, a really cool thing is that you can get great advice from a mate who's probably been through what you're going through right now, especially relationships. Like, I
yeah.
chat with them, I'm like, oh yeah, mate, I've been through that. I'll say something to my mate and he'll be like, I've been through exactly the same thing. This is how it was for me. This is how I got through it. Oh, that's really helpful. I hadn't even thought of that. Like, you can chat
Mm.
GPT all you want, but like
Yeah.
that human response from a mate is always going to be 100 times better.
Yeah. But this is what's so funny is sometimes I'll have conversations with my boyfriend and he'll say he shared that one of his mates has broken up with his girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, when? And he's like, oh, I don't know, recently. Oh, why? Yeah, just don't know. And I'm like, do you not ask for the details?
We don't do it. I do it.
So, oh, sorry to hear that, mate.
Yeah.
Move on.
It's literally what I told my mate on the golf course, and he was like, "Oh yeah, sorry to hear that, mate." Anyway,
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah. Improve your golf swing or something.
"Yeah, exactly."
Um, no, but I really love how you've kind of formed this community for guys, and I think it's so amazing. I'd love to hear more about how that did come about, because I know that you met this guy Tom Shroud,
Yeah,
um, online, and you now built this community together. So I'd love to hear more of the story of that.
yeah. So Tom was on Love Is Blind on TV. I was watching it when it came out, and I just started my Instagram at that point. He shared, or after the show, a video came out about Tom talking about masculinity. So I shared it on my Instagram story. Tom saw it, replied to it saying, "I love what you're posting." He's got chatting in the messages about what it means to be a man, and was like, he'd probably say no, but I was like, "Do you want to meet up for coffee?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So we met up for a coffee, really like clicked and got on, and then we kind of thought, well, why don't we make a space for guys to connect? And that was in February.
Yeah.
So it's been going for like, yeah, 5 6 months now, and then we've become good friends through that as well. So I think we were talking before we came on.
Mm,
Social media does often get a bad rep, but I've had a few cases like that now where in fact, yeah, more than a few, where I've messaged someone on Instagram because I've seen what they share and kind of a bit of what they're like. I'm like, do you want to go for coffee? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. And then you make
mm,
connections. Like, there's
mm.
a yeah, brilliant guy called Ben West who's like a men's mental health campaigner.
Yeah.
Like, we're having a work from home day next Monday. All came from just dropping a message. So social media can be really good for that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like building those connections that you might not otherwise. But even I think as a guy, asking another guy to go for a coffee is kind of scary for some
Yeah,
people, right? It's not like, oh, do you want to come down the pub with like me and my other mates, where maybe there's distractions of like beer and whatever, just sitting and chatting with someone maybe isn't something that everybody would do. So I think that's really nice that you were able to kind of do that and then form that relationship. And you've now grown the community to over 100
Yeah,
guys,
150
right?
guys in there now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is amazing because probably all of those people are also seeking the same thing in terms of having those meaningful connections and meeting like minded people. And I know you've said that with the group, you don't want to be constrained by rigid masculine principles, maybe some of the things we've spoken about. How do you kind of try and challenge that a little bit?
Yeah, it's something. Yes, an interesting question because sometimes in the group, views will come up are that we need to challenge because they don't quite align with the values of the group or what we want to encourage,
Mm,
which is easier said than done.
it's not Hustlers University, whatever
Yeah,
it's
well,
called.
yeah, it's definitely not that. It's definitely not that. So yeah, it can be interesting sometimes to challenge those, but I think the way I like to think about it is that how Tom and I show up is then a kind of example for the other guys to show up. So how we show up online, how we show up when we meet for our walks and coffees, hopefully encourages the other guys to be like, oh yeah, that was nice how Dan did that,
Mm,
or how Tom did that, or it might be something really small like holding a door open for someone. Or I feel like with this stuff, it's showing rather than telling.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I guess maybe guys learn better that way. And something else you said, which I liked, is that you're ambitious as in the group, but not in the sense of maybe financial success or career, but actually an ambition to live a fulfilling and like happy life. And that
yeah,
is like such a nice reframe. And I think it's really refreshing because a lot of the stuff that, is pushed at men is about kind of aiming for these more materialistic things, but you can achieve all of that and actually not be very happy with yourself.
yeah. It's likely that you'll get the Ferrari, you'll get the big mansion, you'll have all this money, you'll have this you know lifestyle, and you'll probably be quite unhappy
Mm,
because you're not fulfilled.
mm.
And so it's why we reframed it in that way, because even for me, I'm like, oh, I need to chase this money, I need to earn more, I need to have this. Like, I really don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just don't.
yeah. And looking at like kind of the little things that actually do fulfill you rather than, I guess, society's expectations of what you should be doing. But having, met up with all these guys and ran this community, what would you say has been the most surprising thing that you've learned from talking to these guys?
The most surprising thing has been, I think it's just restored my faith in men.
Yeah.
Because like we also have this like WhatsApp group where people can send messages in, and we've got people are talking about therapy, people are talking about relationship, like it's just amazing stuff, and like amazing things that people are sharing and amazing advice that people are like, they're giving back because they want to help.
Mm.
And I was like, this is just, I just wish the world could see this, because we only see the unfortunately, you know, people that I don't want people to be seeing online that I don't want to give the airtime to. But it's like day to day life. There's just amazing men everywhere doing really great things, and I think that's been my biggest surprise. And it's like, oh my, wow, hang on a second,
Yeah.
there's some great guys out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Which is so nice. And I think we don't see it enough and we don't hear those positive stories enough, even looking at the media and the news where, things are so negative and people are committing crimes and all the rest of it. It's like we need some more of those, like, I don't know, positive and uplifting stories because, yeah, like you said, there are a lot of good eggs out there. And I think it's so nice that you've kind of brought all those people together in this community. But with that and with the stuff that you're posting on social media, kind of what do you think the future looks like for you? What are some of the things that you are working towards with that?
Yeah, I'd love to. My ultimate goal is to, as my full time job, to do my content,
Yeah.
to go into organizations and deliver my talk. So it centers around dad's story and what we can learn from it, because I think that's, dad also wants to get involved so we can get him up on stage and do Q and A's
Mm.
and things like that, which would be such a special moment for both of us. So doing more of that and just keep on building the community
Yeah.
to like grow members, put more events on, and really expand it. So that's kind of where I want this to go. So I'm kind of using this redundancy to just push myself forward and just see what happens.
Yeah.
But it's nice because a few years ago I had no idea what I wanted. I was like, I've got all this energy to give, but I don't know where to give it. I was like, I'm so frustrated. I think like a classic 20s thing. And I'm like, well, now I kind of know where I want to give it, and I've got this mission, and it's really exciting. So
Yeah.
just gonna see what happens.
That's amazing. And I think it's coming from such a genuine place of wanting to help people and, provide those lessons and insights that will positively impact others. And, there is a lot of rubbish stuff out there on social media, but I think your content always comes across as like very authentic and it's providing value
Thank
and it's also filmed so nice. I'm like, how is this feed so aesthetic?
you. It's taken a lot of practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can imagine. But I want to ask you the question that I ask every guest to finish with, which is if you had to give one piece of advice or you can share a quote or something
Hmm.
to help people achieve their personal best, what would it be?
Ooh, I would say it's not necessarily a quote, but something I read recently, and it's that daily-ish is good enough, which I really liked because I have such a perfectionist like mindset, but I need to just be smashing this all day, every day. But it was like daily-ish is good enough, and 3 to 4 hours of like focused energy is a lot better than trying to do a 16-hour day just because it feels like you're doing more when you're not, especially if you're trying to be creative. So
Yeah.
I think it's just, yeah, daily-ish is good enough. You're human. Do your best. Go easy on yourself. Stop trying to, you know, be ultra productive in every second of every day because
Hmm.
we're not wired that way.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that is something that I'm also trying to learn because I was asked recently with doing this podcast and the theme being personal best, does that carry a certain pressure of kind of living up to that? And I had to say, yeah, like of course it does because I'm having these conversations of how we can improve our lives and better ourselves and I want to be putting that into practice every single day and making sure every day is, you know, optimized and that I'm
Mm,
being really productive and I don't miss the gym and all of that. But it's also so unrealistic. And actually, those times where you do need to slow down a bit and take some time to kind of do the self care that we've spoken about, or even if you're just having a bit of an off day, like that is okay.
yeah.
And I think actually you cause yourself more stress by trying to be perfect than if you just accepted that, you know, if some days are a bit meh, then that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Almost like the mare days are like getting you closer to where you want to be
Yeah.
because they're kind of like a bit of a recharge, which is it's a mentality I'm trying to get better at. Because like
Mm,
yesterday I was just like my brain was just not firing,
yeah.
and in the past I've been like would have been really frustrated with myself, but I was like it's all
Yeah.
right. I woke up this morning. I was like, yeah, I'm on form today. Like, let's smash this video. Let's do this. Like, let's go come to this podcast. Like,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
comes and goes.
Exactly. And that's super important as well, is just acknowledging that if you are having a bit of an off day or your energy's a bit lower, like that's not your permanent state. It's not
Yeah.
fixed. And actually maybe you just need a good night's sleep and like a cup of tea and you'll be fine.
Exactly, yeah. I just like go into panic, but like, oh my god, I'm gonna feel like this for weeks. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
more often than not, it will just be a few days, and then you'll be. If it is weeks, then obviously, then seek help and
Mm,
speak to someone. That's really important. But yeah, sometimes we do oscillate up and down, so
yeah.
we need to go easy on ourselves. I think.
100%. I love that. And where can people go if they want to find your content or check out whatever else you're doing?
Yeah, they can just Instagram. So at Dan Shrigley is where they could find me, and that's you'll kind of get everything from there. The community's linked out from there as well.
Mm.
So that's shoulder to shoulder community on Instagram. So if people want to come to Walk and Coffee, please do. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Is it a free community?
It's free. Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
all free. Sometimes I buy people coffees if they react to the message quickly enough. I'll be like, I'll get you a coffee today. There's some of the events that we've got sauna and cold it, which is ticketed, but it's all like you know cost is just to cut, like, because I pay for the sauna, so it's like I can't pay for like the sauna for everyone, otherwise I'd have no money.
No, but I think that is so nice, and I think just kind of removing that barrier to entry where it's like
Mm.
literally anyone can turn up if they feel like they need it, and it's just like a safe space where people can go. I think is so amazing. So I really love that, and I think the work you're doing is really incredible. I think, in this world where we have a few negative role models and kind of outlaws, I think it's really nice that there's people like yourselves and like Tom who are, representing what it is to be a good man and, be able to be open and talk about the things that you do. So, yeah, keep up the good
I
work.
will do it.
And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for your time today. It's been so good to chat.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everybody, for listening.